G'day there guys, frequently gets in fights with hobos over pizza crust here. It's your host Markee and welcome back to another episode of r/AmiTheA. If you enjoyed today's content, please do tell me what you think about it down in the comments below, and if that's all, enjoy the show. Thank you. Posted by user AnxiousJournalist2, titled, Am I the a-hole for not wanting my fiancé to dance to a love song dedicated to her late fiancé at our wedding? Before we met, my late fiancée, Kayla, was engaged to a man she had dated for 3 years who had died in a traffic accident. I had never dated a woman who had had that kind of loss before, so I've been learning as I go, but I've tried to respect that he will always be a part of her story, and I accepted her relationship with her late fiancé's parents with open arms. They stayed very close, and by the time we started dating, they were basically like a second set of parents to her. Kayla's real parents and her late fiancé's parents are all amazing people, so I consider myself pretty lucky to have 2 sets of great in-laws. Our wedding is coming up in May, and Kayla told me that after her father-daughter dance, she would like to have a second dance with her late fiancé's father to the song Vanilla Twilight. She asked me if I was comfortable with that, and I didn't want to be that guy and say no, so I said yes. But really? It makes me uncomfortable that she would be dancing to a love song dedicated to another man at our wedding. I am happy to make space in our lives for his memory. A photo of him is on our mantle at home. We make it a point to commemorate his birthday, the anniversary of his death, and I feel like I am understanding and supportive when she has bad days. And I am 100% fine with having his parents at the wedding because, like I said, we are all a family. But I feel like our wedding is the one day that it's all about our relationship. Am I the jerk if I ask her to reconsider this dance? What are the best compromises here? I personally don't know any good compromises to this one, but speaking on your feelings and emotions about this, it really does feel like she's not letting go of this memory that she's holding onto of this partner. There's nothing wrong with that. People grieve in different ways. But I feel like the attachment is still so strong there that I guess in the eyes of the parents and her, you are going to be an a-hole for this one because the bond with this dead husband is still so strong. Although I feel like personally your feelings are valid. I feel like you should be allowed as the current husband, as the one participating in your wedding with your wife. At the same time, you should be allowed to make a decision on what goes on here. And I feel like you wouldn't be the a-hole if you were to ask her to reconsider this dance. I feel like there are some things we do need to keep out of weddings if you're not comfortable with it. So that's my judgment. I'm going to say that not the a-hole. I'm going to defer from the popular opinion here and say not the a-hole, but do any of y'all actually know this song? It's weirdly upbeat, but the lyrics are very intelligible and are definitely weird in the context of dancing with the dead ex's dad after her getting married to another dude. It's one thing to miss your ex, but I wouldn't want the sentiment being publicly proclaimed by my wife at my wedding if I were the one in OP's shoes. I'll just quote some of the lyrics that OP has provided here, Vanilla Twilight by Owl City. And I lie awake and miss you, but I'll miss your arms around me, 'cause I wish you were here. But it's not the same without you. It takes 2 to whisper quietly. I feel sad because the spaces between my fingers are right where yours fit perfectly. Waist deep in thought because when I think of you I don't feel so alone. I'd whisper in your ear, oh darling, I wish you were here. Jesus, so she is the a-hole. I knew something was off with this the moment I read his post. This is a deal breaker. It's totally okay to keep someone in your memory, but do you really need to dance to this kind of song when your fiancé is there? This is straight up disrespectful. Seems like she's still hanging on to this guy. I'll say it again, this is disrespectful to you, OP, on every possible emotional level. I'm shocked you played it down like that for her. And geez, it was at your wedding? Come on, man. If I was at that wedding, I'd feel a little uncomfortable if the bride had a dance commemorating her deceased significant other, add in this particular song choice, and I would probably just leave. I feel so bad for OP. Yeah, holy frick, this is wrong. I'm with you on the deal breaker. This reads like, I'm marrying you, but only because I couldn't have this other dude. You'll always be second best. If I'm committing to spending the rest of my life with someone, I'd better be the first choice, as they would be mine. Second string to a 7-year-old ghost? No thanks. OP, don't be surprised if she wants to name your first son after him. You're never gonna have all her devotion. There are gonna be days when she will be sad and depressed about him being gone. When crap goes bad between you two, she'll think of him. He will always be the dream, but you will be the day-to-day grind of life. I swear she will ask to name your kid after him. Had to repeat that. You want this for the rest of your life? You'll have 3 sets of parents involved in your life. She will probably say stuff like we should ask his parents what they think. How often do you think she thinks about him every day? You want this? And OP says, I can definitely see where she is coming from with the song choice, because it does seem like it's about a partner who died, but it does come off very strongly. That's the song you play at his funeral, not her wedding to someone else. Any good alternatives you can recommend? I'm definitely open to her having the dance to a less overly romantic song. I've got nothing good for you. Honestly, I would really recommend some premarital counseling to work this through. It seems that you love and support her, but this song seems to send the message that she's not happy she's with you and maybe wishes you were him. You understand she loved and misses him, but she's marrying you, not him. And if she's just marrying you as a surrogate, that's a recipe for disaster that you want to work through with a counselor before you tie that knot. Hope it works out for you, man. Updates. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my fiancée to dance to a love song dedicated to her late fiancé at our wedding? 2 months ago, I married the love of my life. I was thinking about this thread the other day, how it went and where my head was at when I made it, and I thought you guys might like an update. A little anticlimactically, the thing I was stressing about was a bit of a miscommunication, which probably happens a lot here. Kayla wanted to dance with her late fiancés. I'll just go ahead and call him Luke from now on. Father at our wedding, and Vanilla Twilight was an example of a song along the lines of what she wanted, not the set-in-stone top choice like I had thought. I, and a lot of commenters on the original thread, spent a lot of time overanalyzing the lyrics to that song, looking for hidden meaning in every word. While it turns out that she hadn't put much more thought into the suggestion then, this is a kinda sad song that I like. We got together that night and she had made several playlists of possible first dance songs for us. Songs for when she walks down the aisle, music to play at the reception, and song choices for a dance with Luke's father. We spent hours listening to them all and talking about the wedding. We even made a tournament-style bracket for our first dance song in our journal and put songs head-to-head against each other until the victor emerged. And at the end, we talked about the wedding and our relationship, Luke and their relationship, and grief, what it was like when she lost him and what it was like for me when I lost my mum at a young age, what a family is, and all the things we are hopeful for the future. We stayed up until 3 in the morning just talking and planning and laughing and crying a little, and I'm so glad for it. After getting bombarded by dozens of different opinions from dozens of different people earlier that day, I had been worried that I was going to have a conflict with my fiancé shortly before our wedding. But there was no conflict, just a pure memory. After that night, I started putting in more effort to be involved with the wedding planning process, and actually ask for the things that I wanted, which Kayla actually really appreciated. We also took a long weekend for a couple of weeks before the wedding to go on a camping trip together for just the 2 of us, which I highly recommend to anyone who is getting married. Overall, there was a complete flip in my feelings leading up to the wedding from being somewhat insecure and excited but nervous, to being completely at ease, excited, and feeling stronger about my relationship than ever. The wedding day itself was really wonderful and worth the wait. Kayla and Luke's father had their dance to Lean on Me, and I also had a dance with Kayla's mum, and it was very emotional in a good way. I really felt that the day was a celebration of our love, and I was genuinely happy that Luke's parents were there to celebrate along with us, because they were very much members of our family, and I wish I had the space to describe all the ways that they've been there for us throughout the years. My amazing wife is who she is because of all the experiences that she has had in her life. And I don't want to be the kind of man who asks her to pretend that she has never loved before me, or pretend that her grief is something that is, or should be done with forever now that she has me. I just want to say how glad I am that we shared that night together, and that the wedding was nothing but love and celebration. I never thought I could be so happy. I think it's funny how in most of these updates the OP is like, I didn't listen to any of you morons and it went great. And all of us are like, great job, OP, so happy you didn't listen to us. Wait, you dealt with it like an adult instead of overreacting and following the advice of randos on the internet? It seems obvious now. It's funny because when Kayla would ask people online or talk to regular people about her loss, she'd get responses like, oh, 7 years ago? That's ancient history. And basically acted like she was broken if she was ever sad about Luke again. And when she would talk to people in the grief community, she never got that response. It was always, wow, so you're just coming out of where it's very fresh, huh? She recommended a podcast to me called Griefcast that I found enormously helpful. Not just with understanding her feelings, but processing some of my own feelings about my late mum, who I had a difficult relationship with. It really helps to talk to people and to listen to stories of people who have gone through loss themselves, especially people who have experienced things outside of the norm of loss, like grandparents, elderly parents, etc. This is so freaking true. Oh my gosh. I feel like probably the people commenting just never dealt with a loss like that. There's a weird notion that if someone is ever sad over a late love, that somehow that means they don't really love the person they are with now. It's some kind of empathy gap. Agreed. It would be like telling someone whose child died that a child they had after was second place, or wasn't loved as much as the dead child's. I think one thing that really puts things into perspective was the notion that grief is not about feeling a little better each day until you're 100% better again. Rather, it's about healing and having fewer and fewer bad days. The first 6 months, for example, every single day might be bad. Then the next 6 months, you have a bad day every week. Then, a bad day every month, and so on. Obviously not so clean and linear in real life, but that's the general idea. And I think that that's something I dealt with when I lost my mum without realizing it. I trust Kayla to let me know when she's having a tough time, and she's to the point where it's almost never a very rough day for her, except the anniversary of his death, and I don't see the need to make it a goal for her to never feel sad about his death ever again. I think people are made uncomfortable by grief. They want their loved one to hurry up and move on and get over their lost loved one so they can go back to being the person they were before the death. But I didn't know Kayla before her grief, so I wouldn't want her to be anything other than who she is now. You sound so understanding and compassionate. I'm truly happy that you kids found each other. Keep being you, dude. Posted by user The Lucky Dumb One. Titled, Am I the a-hole for going to my sister's dream school when she just got rejected? So I got into Cornell last week. Honestly, I think it was a fluke. I'm not smart at all. I got a 28 ACT, a decent GPA because my school grade inflates considerably. I had some decent extracurriculars, but nothing remotely competitive enough to get me to a school like Cornell. But anyways, my twin sister is the opposite of me. She's a genius. She has way more impressive stats. 34 ACT, and she only took it once, compared to my 3 times. She has way better grades, way cooler extracurriculars. Everyone always looked up to her as the smart one. I didn't, and still don't mind, 'cause it's true. The only reason I can fathom I got in, and she didn't, is that she applied to the engineering college, while I applied to arts and sciences. I don't know if too many of you guys are familiar with Cornell, but they have a bunch of different colleges you can apply to, each with their different admission criteria. Well, last week, decisions for Ivies came out. Unfortunately for my sister, she didn't get into a single one, including her first choice of Cornell. She checked as soon as it was available and called me bawling. I consoled her and told her that everything was going to be okay, that who cares what school you go to, that she was brilliant and was going to be successful no matter where she goes. Well, anyways, I pretty much resolved that I was getting rejected, so I didn't even bother to look at my email until later that night. Well, I guess surprises do happen sometimes, because I'm a Cornellian. I got in. I just don't know how, but I did. I really want to go, guys, but this would devastate my sister. All week she's been crying and solemn and sad. She's been angry at her friends who got into top schools, especially the ones with the lowest stats. She has decided to go to NYU, but she just hasn't been herself. I haven't told our parents, as I think they assumed I didn't get in because she didn't. Am I being selfish? Should I just go with her to NYC? They always thought that we were going to school together, but it's Cornell. I couldn't in a million years imagine that I'd get in. I've been researching obsessively about it, and I can't shake the desire that if I don't go, I will regret it. Ithaca looks beautiful. It's a small town, which I would love to get away from the huge city that is New York. It seems like a dream opportunity. Am I being a bad sister? I know she would be upset. We were supposed to go to school together. It would crush her. I really don't have anyone else to talk to. Am I the a-hole for going to her dream school? Especially considering how much harder she has worked compared to me. I mean, you're both adults in this situation. Yes, it's hard for her to contend with, and yes, it's weighing heavy on her mind, but at the end of the day, she has to learn that life is unfair, suck it up, and go to the option that she has the opportunity to go to, NYC, NYU. It may not be what she wants, but she's an adult, and she has to compromise and just accept that where and when she can. I feel like it would be out of place for her to react and get angry at you if you got into Cornell and you told her that and she blew up at you. Really, I feel like this is just a big lesson in life for her, and not to take it out on you when you do tell her. I feel like you wouldn't be the a-hole if you go to it and you go tell her. That's the plan. Not the a-hole, you would not be the a-hole. Updates. So everyone here told me that I should go, so I decided to tell my sister. Well, she started screaming from excitement and got, not actually, mad that how couldn't I tell her earlier and she's so proud of me. But seconds later, her excitement just turned to sadness. She went from super giddy to depressed in seconds. And she started bawling, uncontrollably bawling. I tried to comfort her, but she pushed me away and locked herself in our room. I'm going to give her some time alone right now, and we can talk about it more later. So after 5 minutes of the previous post, my sister sent me a text and it said, "I'm sorry for how I reacted. Please don't be mad. I'm so happy for you and your accomplishments. It's just that after I got rejected, I at least had the consolation that I get to go to school with you and we can go together. But now you're going to be where I wanted to be, and I'm just so sad. I worked so hard and did everything I could to go to the best school I can, and I just feel like all my hard work is just wasted effort. I'm sorry I'm ranting, I just need more time." I'm not gonna lie, guys, when I read this, I cried. A lot of you are saying that I obviously have to have attributes that made me desirable, but I really don't. I don't deserve my acceptance. I did my homework between classes, barely studied for anything, took the easiest AP classes available, etc. Meanwhile, I see my sister always taking the hardest classes, studying as hard as she can, always volunteering. She deserves it, not me, and seeing her so hurt pains me. I'm really strongly considering just going to NYU with her. Everyone at Cornell will be just like her, and I don't stand a chance. And I know if I go to Cornell, we're going to drift apart, which would suck because we're best friends, and I just don't want to lose my sister. Update 3. So I told my parents, and they did not react how I would have expected them to. First, they tried to insist that Cornell made a mistake between our applications, which would be impossible. If we applied to the same school within Cornell, like we both applied to arts and sciences, then it would be somewhat probable, but we applied to different schools with different admission committees. They couldn't have mixed them up. Then they went on to explain how I should go to NYU with my sister. I thought it was strange because they definitely would have supported my sister going to Cornell if I didn't get in. My sister apparently thought so too, because she asked why I would not go to Cornell, and they said how it was unfair that I basically slacked off in high school and was able to go, when my sister was the hardworking one who busted her ass all of school. I don't know if I'm being a bit dramatic, but that hurts. I knew they always thought my sister was the smarter one, they've made it clear multiple times, but to hear them say that I don't deserve my spot sucks, even though they're probably right. I stood there in silence, but my sister stood up for me. She asked them how could they say something so cruel to their daughter, that I have 100% every right to be there, and that they should apologize for being so rude. My parents were shocked, because we're both very passive people, and neither of us have ever talked to them like that before. This started an argument, and long story short, we are currently in our rooms. I'm just so thankful to have her stand up for me. I realize that I have internalized a lot of the comments that they've made over the years. I'm glad I have my sister actually believe in me. I still don't know if I want to go to NYU or Cornell, mostly because I don't want to go to school without her. She's my best friend, and going 4 years without someone who just thinks so positively about you just seems so long. At the end of the day, I always thought the NYU was going to be the school that I was going to, so I wouldn't lose much by choosing it over Cornell. I'm going to talk about it more with my sister and look into both schools more. Thanks again everybody for your comments. I wouldn't have realized how important of a person my sister is if you guys didn't give me the courage to tell her that I got in. Updates. Am I the a-hole for going to my sister's dream school when she just got rejected? So, later that day, my parents actually came to me and apologized for everything. I know everyone in that last post really hated them, but my parents are really good people. They have flaws, but all humans do. It's not like they spent their free time brutalizing me. They knew I was smart and even encouraged me to apply to schools like Cornell. They just automatically assumed my sister would get in, especially versus me, which, if you look at our scores, I can't say they should be blamed. Nevertheless, they realized that they were being jerks, and they apologized for making me feel like I'm not as capable as my sister. That they were shocked, but it was no excuse for what they said or how they made me feel, and they love me and apologize for what they said. Anyways, for the moment you've all been waiting for, I decided that I want to go to Cornell. It was such a tough choice and wasn't made without serious consideration. But ultimately, I'll be happier in Ithaca. Plus, my sister is going to try to transfer after our freshman year. If she still wants to go, she may find that she loves NYU after all that time. Whatever she decides, I have no doubts she will be extremely successful. Plus, it'll be good to spend some time apart from each other and grow as people. NYC is only a short bus ride away, so we can definitely see each other during holidays and breaks. I want to thank everyone again for their overwhelmingly positive support. I know I couldn't have made my decision without each and every one of your messages. I'm sorry if this update isn't as exciting as many others tend to be, but I hope it gave the few interested people some closure. Posted by user Moist Hospital, titled, "Would I be the a-hole for grave robbing our family pet?" So our dog passed 3 days ago. She predated my daughter and even my wife, so it was especially hard on me. We had a little burial in our backyard where my daughter, 8, said a few words. We put her favorite blanket and toy in the coffin that I made, and I buried her. But unbeknownst to me, my daughter snuck in another toy. I had a stuffed penguin I had for nearly 15 years. It was something I bought for my previous dog before she passed, and this new dog played with it a lot too. I wanted to keep this toy forever because it represented 2 dogs I've owned, not just the one. I kept it on my home office desk and had no intention of ever getting rid of it. I guess my daughter thought it should be with her too, so she took it, put it in the coffin, and I buried it. I only found out today after asking her where the penguin went. Obviously, I'm not going to get mad at her for this, but this cut deep. No fault of her own, she didn't know, but I'm left with a hard decision. I think tonight, when everyone's asleep, I'm going to dig up the coffin, pry it open, get the penguin back, and then rebury the coffin. I made mention of this to my wife as a joke to gauge her reaction, and she said it was a dark joke, and no sane person would do that. I might have to do it and never tell her or anyone else. Would I be the a-hole for grave robbing our family pet to retrieve this stuffed penguin? I can see why your wife may be against the idea of you doing it, but no one is particularly being an a-hole to each other in this scenario. I think it's just an odd thing to want to do, and it's a bit creepy. And now that you've brought it up to your wife, she's going to know if that dog appears that you've gone and grave robbed a dead dog. If I was in her shoes, I don't think that would sit right with me knowing that you've gone and done that. It's really not something normal people do. Personally, I feel like I would hold that against you. I don't feel like it's an a-hole situation. I'd just be like, what's wrong with you, man? I would leave it as it is. I can see why you want to do it, and you're welcome to do it if you want to, but you're going to be judged if you do it. Gonna go with no a-holes here for this one, though. No a-holes here, but I think that you should just let it be. How do you think you'll feel after prying the coffin open of your loved one? You probably won't forget that experience, and it may stay as a part of your memory of that pet from that point forward. I think you should just let it be. Please remember that creatures have a lot of fluids in them, and when they die, well, that fluid isn't kept in place very well. Animals are not embalmed. You would not want the penguin back after 3 days, and do not want that to be a memory of a loved one. I don't see how in any scenario this would make you an a-hole. It does, however, make you look creepy as hell. I'm sorry for your loss, but you aren't going to look very good digging up a makeshift coffin in the middle of the night, trying to rob it of a stuffed penguin you have fond memories of. That crap doesn't look good on a police report. Grieve, get a tattoo, go buy another penguin. Don't dig your dead animals up. No a-holes here. I'm sorry for your loss, but for your own sake, please don't do this. After 3 days, your dog is not going to be in good condition. It's going to be horribly upsetting seeing and smelling that. Grieve dog and penguin together. Oh man, the memory of your sweet 8-year-old daughter putting your penguin in the box is a much better memory to have than what awaits if you look in that box. And if you do get the penguin, it will replace any good memory that you ever had with it. Don't do it. And OP says, I got it. I'm not going to put the photo up of that. I didn't get much time alone with my dog after she passed. I couldn't say anything at the funeral because my daughter said something beautiful that I couldn't follow up. As macabre as it sounds, this is the closure I needed, getting to spend 10 minutes saying anything I wanted to my puppy. We covered her in blankets so I didn't see her. I just saw the penguin, grabbed it, said my spiel, then reburied her. There was no smell or anything. I'm going to be honest, it hurts. It still does. It only made my grieving worse doing this, but I know I'll always have a memento with me. What if we move? Or there's a flood? Or our house burns down? I'll have very little but memories. At least now I have something of hers I can cherish forever. Do what you have to do. I have my sweet dog's collar, and I'm not reusing it. It's hanging here as a memento of the good girl that she was. I needed that collar to keep a piece of her like you need the penguin. I'm sorry for your loss. I have my dog's tags around his favorite toy I gave him when he was a puppy. I cuddle him every night. I also needed it. Whatever helps you, and to each their own. Updates. Would I be the a-hole for grave robbing our family pet? I wanted to make an update to my Am I the a-hole post. I couldn't keep it a secret for very long and told my wife. She was livid, but it blew over the next day. She said she doesn't want it in the house or anything else for that matter. She said she wanted it in the ground with our dog, but didn't want me to go through that again. so we kept it in my safe for the time being. It's never to be brought out, especially shown to our daughter, who is not going to be made aware. I decided to seek some professional help as per the suggestion of one poster, and I've been told I have diagnosed depression. They asked me 20-some-odd questions, and the only ones I didn't answer yes to was things like harm. My doctor advised me to hold off getting another pet until I can fully grieve. It's hard because my last dog was bought by my parents and lived with the family until I moved out and brought it with me. This one that just passed, I did all the work. I drove to get her, I paid for her, I did everything. There is recurring feelings of guilt that I didn't do as good as I could have, and I nitpick on things I've done wrong in the past regarding the dog. It's not healthy for me to have another one, at least for now. It's probably the hardest decision I've made in my whole life, and it was playing with my head so much, I did what I did. I'm considering a penguin tattoo as memorial, likewise as someone suggested. Wow, I love the idea of the penguin tattoo. And I appreciate that you tell your wife what you do, even when it would be the easy path not to. I hope you find therapy to be helpful. I know it's helped me through a few difficult things. Western culture is really bad at grieving. We have no idea how to do it. We look at the grieving like they are mentally ill. We make death sterile and pretty so that we don't have to face our fears of mortality and loss. Your feelings are totally normal. People might not understand the thing with the penguin, but it's none of their business. Take your time in mourning your loss and honoring your dead. The Western approach isn't perfect, but there are worse ways to do it. In Madagascar, they literally dance with the corpses. It spreads a lot of disease. Yup, and one culture, until relatively recently, ate their brains, which led to all sorts of bad times. If everyone wants to know more, Google Kuru, and then wish you hadn't. I don't think it was wrong for you to take the penguin, even if it was a little oddball. I get that you're suffering from some issues, but don't feel bad about that. It happens to the best of us. Just do your best to get by however you can. Posted by user Ria, titled, "Am I the a-hole? I cancelled on a friend for a date." I met and dated this girl Agatha for a month over a year ago. We weren't compatible, so we broke things off mutually, and remained close friends. She plays tennis and I enjoy watching tennis, so she invites me to all of her competitions, and I try to attend to support her. I met Betty 2 months ago, and I asked her out. We scheduled a date. Agatha then informed me of a competition on that date. It was too close to the day of the date to reschedule, and since it was a first date, I didn't want to scare off Betty, so I told Agatha I wouldn't be able to go. Agatha naturally got angry and then stopped replying to my messages. For the next 2 months, she completely ignored my attempts to apologize and make up for things. I wasn't pestering her every day, sending her a message or giving her a call maybe once a week to see if she had forgiven me yet. Yesterday, I got an invite to a party that she's hosting to celebrate winning this huge award. It's clear that Agatha intentionally invited me. I took this to assume she's forgiven me and is willing to make up with me at the party. I tried to call for clarification, but she's still not answering. The problem is, Betty and I are still together, and going strong. I really, really like this girl, and see a future with her. I told her about the situation with Agatha, and she got very angry. Not because Agatha is my ex, but because Agatha has been ignoring me for months, and just wants to pick up where we left off, as Betty put it. I don't agree. I think I did something wrong in my scheduling error, and Agatha took time to forgive me for that. Betty doesn't want me to go to the party, but I wanted to bring her with me so that she could meet Agatha. She's willing to come with me to support me, as she is very important to me, and I very much want her to come, but has made it very clear that she's not too comfortable with it. She told me that she'll go with me to the party if I go, since I asked her, and if I decide to stay home, she'll stay with me. No matter what, we will be together. And final point, I think Agatha might still be interested in me because I've had scheduling issues before with my work, But the only time she's ever gotten angry about it is this time. And the only thing that makes it different is that this time it was a date that caused the issue. Friends of the internet, am I the a-hole here? Or is Agatha the a-hole? Or is Betty the a-hole? Or are we all a-holes? If it matters, I am also a girl, and we're all in our late 20s and early 30s. I mean, in all honesty, this could just be a skewed perspective and not the absolute truth. It kind of seems pretty black and white to me that you backed out on her because of a date, and we don't know all the intricacies of your interactions and what's been going on there and what you can read from this person and what you don't read and what you're hiding from us. But given what you've given me, I'm gonna go with not the a-hole for this one. It does feel like she's jealous, and she's just ghosting you, and is like, hey, we can be friends again. I was just a bit, I was doing my own thing. I was in another universe. It's all cool, right? Let's not talk about the past. You just come to this awards night. It's all cool, don't worry. Kinda seems like her way of processing a rejection for something that never happened in the first place. And for that, I'm gonna say not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Agatha naturally got angry. No. The fact that you seem to think that you're supposed to cancel anything that comes by if Agatha asks you to come see her makes me think this relationship is not very healthy. Not the a-hole, you didn't cancel. You already had plans. That's different. And, if how you put it is true, it would seem Agatha may still have some feelings for you. The reason she's the a-hole is because she's risked your friendship over you possibly having affection for someone else that coincides with the time you have with her. Or simply put, she is jealous. Betty seems like a cool chick. I don't blame her for thinking Agatha isn't a great friend to you. If I were you two, go to the party, but don't ditch Betty. Even if Agatha wants to have a chat. She has had months. It's either water under the bridge, and I assume Betty doesn't know anyone attending, so don't go falling for that, just a minute to chat, nonsense. Agatha assumes I will come to all of her competitions, as I've promised that I would. And this competition was scheduled at a normal time and day for a competition to take place, so it's not unreasonable, I think, for her to have expected me to go. Betty might actually know a lot of people attending, because she and Agatha move in the same circles. They both play tennis, although Betty is not nearly as good as Agatha is, not even close to the same league. What would Agatha even say to me if she pulled me aside? I'm fairly bad at knowing what people are thinking or going to say. It took me 2 months to realize I might not be the a-hole in this situation, and only after Betty explained it to me. So what would be her motivation to talk to me alone? Well, from my experience, when you go to a party with a new bird and someone wants to talk to you alone, it's 1, rude, and 2, usually to separate you both and get more of your attention. She may say it's to apologize for her ignoring you, but she has had months. If she waits to speak to you alone when you're attending somewhere with a new girlfriend, it is to be a dick. She could have easily called. So if that happens and you decide to speak to her, I'd suggest making your feelings for Betty quite clear. And OP quotes the, if she waits to speak to you alone when you're attending somewhere with a new girlfriend, it's to be a dick, and says, if you had not said this, I would have been an idiot and abandoned Betty. I am an idiot. I do really want to speak to her, and I really want to apologize to Agatha for not rescheduling, and not thinking about her competition times when rescheduling the date with Betty. But I think you're right. If Agatha wants to talk to me alone, she can schedule a time outside of her party, when I won't have a guest with me. I'm really confused as to why you believe that you should be the one apologizing here. Can you explain why you feel the need to apologize, instead of Agatha apologizing for how she treated you? I promised her that I would support her in her competitions as we are close friends, and I made plans without thinking of the fact that that was a day of the week and a time that she might have a competition. And, instead of rescheduling for a friend that I've known for years, I instead went on a date with a girl that I'd known for about 5 minutes. I feel like I'm the ass here. So in other words, you had absolutely no idea whether or not she would have a competition that day. Your life does not revolve around Agatha and her tennis competitions. You are a great friend for making an effort to go to a ton of her games, but it is unreasonable for her to expect you to make it to all of her games, especially if she's not keeping you abreast of her competition schedule well in advance. Not the a-hole. Have you dated anyone else between the time you broke it off and Betty? If not, it sounds like she was trying to keep you on hold, or assumed that you'd be interested again since you support her. I would not go as far as calling AmiTheA the a-hole though, just because she may have been reading the whole situation wrong. Yes, I have, but not very seriously. She has dated other people too, and she has often told me in detail about her relationships, to get my opinions and advice, which is usually just, I don't know, it's your relationship, you know what's best. AmiTheA is definitely the a-hole then. Update, I cancelled on a friend for a date. So you all helped me realize why I felt like an a-hole. I was being manipulated by AmiTheA, and I was prioritizing a tenuous relationship that I had been conned into thinking was strong over a relationship that has a great amount of potential. I sat down with Betty, and she was happy to see that I was taking her concerns in stride, and she was thrilled when I told her my plan. The plan was to go to the party, greet AmiTheA and wish her well, congratulate her, and at some point in private, tell her that her behavior towards me has been unacceptable, and I will need to take a break to reevaluate our friendship. It seemed like a good plan. Betty got to support me and see it through. I got to have the closure I needed. Needless to say, this isn't what happened. It may be important to note that Betty is a person of color, AmiTheA and I are both white. We showed up at the party, and AmiTheA was all smiles. I introduced her to Betty, and she engaged her in a brief conversation. We stayed for about an hour. Before I could speak with her alone, AmiTheA got everyone's attention. Everyone at the party was white, by the way, except Betty. AmiTheA thanked us for all coming and started rambling. She was talking and talking, and the subject wandered from her awards to her tennis to her family, and somehow she ended up talking about how much she hates insert race here from insert country here, aka people like Betty. Betty is not above kicking some ass, but to my amazement, she just sat there nodding, as everyone else in the room laughed along uncomfortably. After AmiTheA settled down, she gave a toast and everyone resumed conversation. I wanted to say something, but Betty smiled and took me to my car and drove me home. At home, I was actually really angry, and I sat down with Betty and yelled about all of the horrible crap AmiTheA has done in the past that I just forgave. It's like I was looking into a funhouse mirror version of her, not the real thing. Betty listened and told me it was all right. I apologized a lot to her, and she told me that it wasn't my fault, and that she wanted to help me have healthier relationships from here on out. I have cut off all contact with AmiTheA, after a brief message to her telling her I needed some time to myself. She hasn't tried to reach out, and I don't think she will. Thank you, Reddit people, for opening my eyes. If y'all hadn't reinforced how awful AmiTheA's expectations were, I would have dismissed and excused her actions at the party. I'm devastated to have lost a friend, but I know in my heart that she was never really my friend. What I lost was an illusion, but I have gained a healthy perspective. Out of curiosity, can you be a bit more specific about how exactly AmiTheA segued into explicit racism during this victory speech of hers? Hey y'all, thanks all for coming, appreciate all the support, and oh, by the way, have I ever mentioned I hate Mexicans? Like, I'm just curious how this just randomly happened and no one said anything. Award, tennis, training, support from family, family values, racism. I can go into more detail if you want, but that's just the gist of it. I'd really like some more detail. This woman sounds like a maniac. AmiTheA is white and has lived in a southern region of the United States her entire life. Betty is native, albeit not from the area. There's a lot of hatred there for AmiTheA's family, apparently. So, literally no one said anything? Everyone's cool with their racist friend AmiTheA? What would you say? It's her party, and calling her out would result in a tantrum from her, which would be even more uncomfortable. They sort of just sat there laughing where it seemed appropriate, looking awkward. Y'all just let her trash Betty's race and laughed nervously? No one stuck up for her? No one stuck up for her. No. I was more in shock of it than anything, and I've spent so much time just excusing the things that Agatha has said in the past that I've ignored it when she said anything that even hinted at this. I'm glad I didn't make a scene though. We just left quietly, and I think that was the best possible outcome at that point. Calling her out wouldn't have changed her, it would have just put Betty in the middle of a fight. It's not about changing Agatha's mind. It's about letting Betty know that you and your friends aren't permissive of racism. She needs to know that she is welcome, and comments like Agatha's are not. To be an outsider is already challenging. It's made even harder when the people around you are completely silent when someone is bigoted to your face. Betty knows this. Betty also knows that I care more about her safety and comfort than creating a scene that would do nothing except embarrass and potentially endanger her. Being silent was the best option. Speaking up would have resulted in, at best, being shot down immediately, with an immediate change in subject which would have alienated her. At worst, a screaming match that would bring up even more horrendous thoughts, which would have humiliated her. She knows that I do not permit that behavior, as I have cut it out of my life. As I said, I've severed all contact with Agatha because of this. Frankly, Betty is relieved at my actions, and seems very happy that I am handling things in a more reserved, mature manner, and not falling into Agatha's traps. Agatha likely wanted me to either laugh along and put Betty off, or to fight her, giving Agatha the opportunity to scream at me with reasonable justification. Leaving silently was the only way to make sure that she didn't get the attention that she wanted from me. Posted by user ConcernedParent1234, titled, "Am I the a-hole for telling my disabled son and his partner I disapprove of their relationship? I am fully prepared to be called an a-hole. My son is 23 and has cerebral palsy that is quite severe. It only affects him physically. He is very smart. I have recently set up his financials where he gets his disability sent to him directly and got him his own place. His caregiver visits him daily at his new place. I did this because I wanted my son to be independent. He did very well for a few months, but has recently gotten into a relationship with a 58-year-old man that I simply do not approve of. It's not that I'm homophobic, but it's the fact that this man older than me has now moved in with my son. They've only known each other for 3 months. And what's worse is that my son isn't gay. I had a heartfelt conversation when my son broke down and admitted that he isn't gay, but is scared of dying alone. I have been heartbroken ever since and tried to set up some counseling sessions, only to find out that his partner is double booking activities on those days and is forcing my son to choose. I'm not sure what this older man's deal is. He is contributing around 25% of the rent and seems to work. Last Sunday, I had them over for lunch and I couldn't control myself. I called him a predator and I thought he was disgusting. He then proceeded to take it on himself to physically push my son out of the house without even asking. My son called me after and said what I did was wrong and I don't understand his predicament. Every instinct in me is telling me that this man is bad news. I'm contemplating reporting him to the authorities, but that might be going too far, and my son will likely resent me. Was I really the a-hole for calling out that creep like that? All I want is for my son to be happy, and right now, I really don't think this situation with a man he isn't attracted to is making him happy. But he is 23, and I may have overstepped. I honestly, personally don't think that you're the a-hole for doing this. I guess there could be situations similar to this where you intervening would be an a-hole move, but your son is being taken advantage of, and is being emotionally and now physically abused by this man. Everything to me screams manipulation, and I feel like you are being 100% transparent with this situation. I don't feel like there is much that you could leave out of a situation like this. I don't feel like you're intentionally painting him in a bad light. He does sound like a bad person. Your son needs help now more than ever, and I think you do need to get authorities involved and get this man out of the house. Not the a-hole, you would not be the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You aren't the a-hole at all. You are being protective of your child, and reasonably so. What in the hell is a 58-year-old man doing with a 23-year-old boy? You don't want to hear this, but I can almost guarantee that that older man has some really creepy control fetishes. Your son is physically disabled and young, and this older man can easily manipulate your son. For example, people who have fat fetishes. When their partner starts to lose weight, they have sex with them less often and tell them how they prefer when they were fatter, and then the person eats more to get fat again to appeal to their partner. It's emotional manipulation, and it's disgusting. There's no way that isn't what this man is doing to your son. I also think this dude is preying on her son financially too. I mean, okay, he pays part of the rent, but is he the one doing the budgeting since he schedules all their activities? OP, is your son on top of his finances? As in, does he know how to pull his credit reports, etc.? I wouldn't put it past a 58-year-old who manipulates a 23-year-old to the point of physically removing him from the situation to steal your son's identity as well, under the guise of, well, I was just trying to help him. Not the a-hole, the guy sounds like a creep and was physical with your son. OP, you are not worried about your son being with a guy, you are worried that your son is dating a man in his 50s who at one point was physical with your son, just because he's afraid of dying alone. OP, I strongly recommend talking to your son again about his situation, but I wouldn't call the authorities over it just yet. This is exactly it. If my son had found a younger man to have a relationship with, I would be thrilled. But not this old man who moves in just like that. He's older than me. He should know better, which is why I don't trust him. Age is somewhat irrelevant. Intent is far more important. If your son isn't gay and he's being used, I'd be more concerned about that. Age is irrelevant to some extent. He's fudging 58. Nasty. Why is it that so many people on this sub and others seem to think that age is absolutely irrelevant? An age gap is fine, as you say to some extent, but the creepy old idiot is older than his fudging dad. What kind of degenerate finds that okay? Exactly. It may be legal, but a 60-year-old should not be with a 23-year-old, especially a disabled 23-year-old who likely has self-esteem issues and definitely not enough relationship experience to make educated decisions about the appropriateness of the relationship. My boyfriend and I are 6 years apart. He's 27, I'm 21, and even he will make jokes that 20 was the youngest he's ever set his age limit to on Tinder, and he still felt old and gross. If someone 40 years older than you is telling you that you're the only one for them, it's because everyone their age realized a long time ago that they weren't dating material. They're just capitalizing on the naivety of youth. 100% this. People this guy's age have been through too much to put up with his bullcrap, but a 20-something-year-old who just started their adult life is more likely not to be able to see through him. Update to Am I the a-hole for telling my disabled son and his partner I disapprove of their relationship? So, my son has moved back in with me last weekend. The old man had apparently stopped working and was drinking heavily and being very loud and critical of my son. I got a phone call from my son on Saturday with him in tears and asked me to help him. I jumped into my car and brought him home. I also yelled at the man and told him I'm calling the cops. I then called an officer I knew to accompany us back to the apartment so that we could get his stuff. When we got there, it looked like the man had moved out in a hurry. So while the locks get changed by the wonderful landlord, my son is back home with me. I'm happy that he's rid of that predator, but I'm extremely sad my son felt he had to get companionship from a man like that. I have set up therapy appointments that my son will actually be attending now. I hope with all my heart he can find the happiness he is looking for. Thank you to everyone for telling me I wasn't completely crazy. Good. I'm glad for you and your son, though I wish that gross man had to face some kind of consequences for his actions, but better your son be out of that situation. On top of the therapy, maybe look into some things that your son can do in the community to make some friends. Like classes at the local community college, or even something like a VR headset so he can try out those VR chat rooms. That way he can get out a little and talk to some other people, either IRL or virtually. I think making some friends on top of seeing a therapist would make him happy, and speaking from experience, a lot of people I met online have become true lifelong friends, even if we don't see each other much. If his motor skills are an issue, they make specialized controllers for people to use nowadays. But with VR, it's really just an all-in headset and moving around a little with controls in your hands. I apologize if this was an unwanted suggestion, I just know how valuable some of the friends I've made online have been in my life, so maybe your son will find a connection with someone too. Thanks for the great suggestions. He already goes to a program that will help him gain some administrative skills that I'm hopeful will turn into a good career. I'm still wary about him talking to people online because that's how he met the man. But I don't want to ban him from making friends. I just hope he will be more careful next time. There are toxic and healthy online environments. He might do well to engage with other communities of disabled people online and talk about his experience. Many others can probably sympathize. I'm so glad to read this update. I was seriously concerned about your son after reading your original post. I just want to say good job to the both of you. You stood by your son and helped him to get out of an abusive situation. Your son was brave enough to ask for help. With you by his side, I am sure he will be able to heal from this. Best wishes going forward. Thank you. That means a lot. I'm a little late to the show here, but here are my thoughts. I'm assuming his fear of dying alone is related to his condition, but for what it's worth, that is something that able-bodied people worry about all the time. At the end of the day, your son is 23 and has a whole life ahead of him. I think it's best he just surrounds himself with family and friends, and hopefully one day he'll find the right person. Posted by user, I don't want her there. Titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to invite my fiancé's ex, who he is still friends with, to our wedding? So, my fiancé and I were working on the list of people that we're inviting to our wedding next year, and he wants to invite one of his ex-girlfriends, who he is still friends with. I am not down with that. I said I don't want us to get married in front of the girl who was his girlfriend before me, and with whom he had his longest relationship. They were together for 6 years. We have been together for 1. I've met the girl a couple of times. We're civil, and I know she's engaged, so this is not about jealousy. The idea just feels really weird and uncomfortable to me. He said that she's part of his friend group and he cannot invite all of their friends and leave her out. He said that she's part of his life and his friend before and after she was his girlfriend. He lived with her in college and she paid for everything because he was broke from supporting his siblings. He said she doesn't need to be seated anywhere near the altar where I can see her, but he wants her to be there. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I just want to clarify that she did not pay his tuition fees. She paid for their apartment, bills, and food, and that is a lot, and I'm glad she was there for him when he needed help. My god, they broke up amicably, they're still friends, and they were positive influences on each other's life? Yeah, better cut her out of the wedding, that's great. I understand it's your wedding, but it's his wedding too. Does he not get to decide who of his friends get to attend the wedding? Seems kinda petty and toxic that you're holding that against him for this one, and I'm gonna go with you're the a-hole for letting your jealousy get the best of you in this situation. I think you are the a-hole, and I think you would be the a-hole if you continue to die on this hill. I don't think it's worth it, and I think that they have a nice, platonic relationship. You're the a-hole. They are friends, and she's important to him, and she's engaged to someone else. Demanding she not be invited makes you seem really insecure in your relationship, which isn't a great sign going into a marriage, and makes me wonder extra why you're getting married only after a year of dating. Can I be totally honest? He proposed to me a month after she got engaged. I didn't nag him. I wasn't even expecting the proposal. But he asked, and I do love him, so I said yes. Afterwards, I sometimes thought what if he just proposed to me because he was trying to keep up with her. But I also think maybe that's just me being necessarily insecure. They don't talk or see each other often. She looks like she's really happy with her boyfriend, and I know my boyfriend and I are really happy together. I don't think that's crazy of you to find odd. In general, when I hear someone's getting married on a fast timeline, I wonder, what's the rush? And the answer is often that there's an external reason they're in a hurry, which isn't always bad, but can be. I think this fight is deeper than the guest list. Like I said in my other comments, if you were totally secure in your relationship, I don't think her presence would bother you. Maybe it's time to hold off on wedding planning temporarily so that you can have some deep talks about all of this. Can I have your honest opinion? Do you think that there's a chance that he really just proposed to me to keep up with her? I mean, I'm an internet stranger. I don't know either of you. But from my limited info, it does strike me as strange that he was in another relationship for 6 years without getting married, but proposed to you after less than 1. He might not have done it consciously, and it doesn't mean he doesn't love you, but it's not crazy of you to wonder. Don't worry, I just want to know what other people who don't know us think. I won't take your answer as proof and tell him he just used me or he doesn't love me. No a-holes here, but weddings and marriages are about compromise, and if this means this much to him, I'm on his side. Can I ask why? My point is that I don't want to see his ex as I walk down the aisle or say yes to him. I think the actual problem is that you are not secure with him or this relationship, and shouldn't be marrying someone you've known for less time than the peanut butter in your cupboard. Why would you be thinking about her as you walk down the aisle? This all sounds to be like you feel really insecure about your relationship, and part of you thinks that he still regrets losing his ex. One of my husband's exes came to our wedding, and I didn't even think twice about it. I barely even think about the fact that she's an ex of his because they were completely over before we met, and our relationship is 100 times stronger than theirs ever was. If you need his exes out of sight to not feel threatened by them, I worry about the strengths of your relationship. They had been broken up for 6 months when we met. I love him, and he has never done anything that's made me question his feelings for me. But sometimes it feels weird when I think that she had him for 6 years, and I've only had him for 1. But then I think, even though we've been together for just a year, we have a lifetime ahead of us, and I'm really looking forward to that. That's not a very long time after a 6-year relationship, to be honest. But just talk to him about all of this. Tell him why you feel a little insecure about her, and even tell him you wondered if he proposed to you to keep up with her. The wedding invite isn't really the issue here. When you walk down the aisle, you should feel so confident in the marriage that's about to happen that Sasquatch sitting in the front row wouldn't distract you. Update: am I the a-hole for refusing to invite my fiance's ex, who he's still friends with, to our wedding? So it's been over a month since I first posted, and I thought that I'd post a last update for you guys as part of closing this chapter of my life. Short story, my fiancé and I have broken up. During pre-marriage counseling, he realized that he still loves his ex. She also broke off her own engagement for him, and they are now back together. I took to heart 3 things from the replies in my original thread. Those who said that I was "you're the a-hole" told me not to look at my fiancé's ex as his ex, but as his friend. Those who said I was not the a-hole advised that I should talk to my fiancé about my insecurities. Some suggested pre-marriage counseling. So I swallowed my pride and told my then fiancé that his ex is welcome in our wedding because she is his friend. I also told him of my insecurities and asked if we could go to pre-marriage counseling. He was supportive and agreed. After our second meeting with our counselor, my ex-fiancé talked to me. He said that counseling has made him realize that he's still in love with his ex. I was in total shock because he has always been the perfect boyfriend. I never felt like I was competing with anyone for him. He said he never meant to hurt me and that he did love me, but he could not marry me knowing that part of him will always belong to someone else. It's been a few weeks since we broke up, and surprisingly, I've been holding up well. It hurts because I miss him, but I just tell myself that he's not the right one for me. I'm 23, I have my whole life ahead of me, and it's an exciting new adventure to try to find the right person. My ex-fiancé and I are civil. He's a good guy, and I appreciate our time together, though it sucks that it's ended. From what I know, he told his ex that he still loves her, and I guess that she felt the same way because she also broke off her engagement to give their relationship another try. Good luck to them. So there, I just want to thank everyone who commented, whether it's you're the a-hole, not the a-hole, or no a-holes here. I had great advice from people, especially those who said we should try pre-marriage counseling. It changed my life, hopefully for the better. I'm not sure if anyone else has pointed this out or not, but your intuition was obviously picking up on something significant when you, who presents as such a balanced and reasonable person, had such a strong reaction to the idea of his friend being at your wedding. It's such an invaluable thing to be able to discern when they're being insecure and unreasonable, and when we're tapping into deeper knowledge we need to pay attention to. I am so sorry this happened, but so impressed with how you're processing this. If it had to happen at all, I'm glad it was before you took vows. And kudos on seeking out clarity through counseling. May your intuition continue to serve you well. Also want to back this up, since OP was deemed the a-hole in that post. A-hole or not, your intuition saved a lot of people a lot of heartache. Props to you. Edit, I don't understand the sensitivity here. Giving props to OP isn't a diss on people who called her the a-hole. She deserved compliments for her intuition and how she ultimately handled the situation. Some folks below are actually trying to take credit now? Like, seriously? Hey there. I didn't see your first post a month ago, but I browsed through it and I could not believe the complete lack of empathy from the you're the a-holes in there. Anyone who told you that you were an a-hole for not wanting to share your wedding day with someone your fiancé loved for 6 years doesn't understand how human emotions or healthy relationships work. Relatable. Jealousy is a human emotion, and there is never a justification for putting the person you want to spend your life with through it on your wedding day. It's selfish, it's irrational, it's just a bad move. Anyone who insists on doing it against the protestation of their fiancé obviously has other priorities, and that's what you learned here. You are not the a-hole. You never were. Not one of these upvotes in the first post came from a person that cares about another person as much as they care about themselves. I'm probably going to get downvoted to hell because of this, but this is exactly why I draw a hard line with ex friendships, both for myself and the person I'm dating. If I'm dating you and you're super buddy-buddy with an ex, that's your prerogative, and you're completely within your right to do so, but I'm out. Out of the billions of people on Earth, I don't for the life of me understand why you'd want to hold on to a quasi-friendship with a person you previously dated. There's a reason you were attracted to them in the first place, and among the things shared between you are an emotional bond, physical affection, bodily fluids, and all other forms of intimacy. The rapport and connection you share with them doesn't automatically go away because you are no longer dating. The only exception to this is if you have children together. You obviously need to remain in each other's lives in that case, and try to remain civil. Posted by user Sigidney Ruther, titled, Am I the a-hole for wanting to go to the funeral of a girl that I helped get addicted to drugs? I'm 26 and clean from heroin for 3 years. I was also a piece of crap and used to deal for a while. I managed to get with a beautiful girl named Markee when I first started to get into the thick of things. She knew who I was, but she said she loved me. I will regret this for the rest of my life, but I was the person who shot up Markee for the first time. After that, there was no stopping her. She stuck around with me, probably because I was her dealer more than anything, but then I got clean and never saw her again for a long time. A year ago, she reached out to me on Facebook and told me that she had been clean for a few months, and she said that she didn't hate me for what happened, and she hoped I was still clean. Last week, I got a call from my sister, who told me that she saw on Facebook that Markee had OD'd, and there was a funeral service this upcoming Thursday. I immediately just burst into tears because I hoped that this would never happen, and I feel so much guilt over it. I want to go to the funeral service for her, but I'm afraid that my presence would be unwanted. At the most, I would just slip in the back, pay my respects, and leave. I need to do this for myself. Am I the a-hole for wanting to go? I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say you're probably the cause of her death, as sad as that is. Pay your respects at home. Pay it somewhere else where you're welcome. You're not welcome at this funeral. You're pretty much the reason that this happened, and that's disgusting. You're the a-hole, stay away from them, Jesus Christ. You're not the a-hole for wanting to go. You would be the a-hole if you did go. Your presence would not be welcomed. Go mourn privately somewhere else. Also, edit to add, it's a dick move to use this opportunity to do it for yourself, as you put it. Her family is not putting on a funeral to lessen the guilt of the person who got their child addicted to heroin. Find something else to do for yourself. Maybe talk about it at an NA meeting or something. Agreed. OP did enough. I would be irate if my brother's heroin dealer had the audacity to show up to my brother's funeral. Mourn elsewhere. My best friend committed suicide while being addicted to drugs. His dealer, or person that got him addicted, had the audacity to show up at the funeral. And let's just say, it was not accepted well in the slightest. My daughter OD'd 3 months ago, and if anyone who sold her the stuff she was doing, especially the one who was thought to be getting her stuff at last, it wouldn't have been a good situation for him, and I'm sure this girl's family and friends are of the same mind. Why in the hell would you want to cause them any more grief? Did the drugs really screw your mind up that bad, or are you just naturally an a-hole? You want to do something decent? Stay away. Far away. Don't sneak in the back quietly, don't go to the graveyard, just stay away. These people had to bury their child, and there is no worse pain that I know. Leave them alone, they have enough pain to deal with. You're the a-hole. If her family is aware that it was you that started her on that path, and they will be hurt to see you at the funeral, then do not go. The family's feelings matter significantly more than your feelings. This is really the crux of the issue. Funerals are for the living, and unfortunately, the living in this circumstance wants absolutely nothing to do with OP. It would be beyond selfish to prioritize your need to grieve versus the family. I appreciate the fact that you are receptive to judgment. Find your own inner peace, OP, and good luck. If you go, you're the a-hole. Sorry, dude. Hear me out because I am saying this with a frame of reference. I unfortunately have had to deal with more than one opiate addict in my life, and even more, unfortunately, had to cut more than one opiate addict out of my life. You can only help someone out so much. After a while, it gets to the point that you're enabling the addiction, and if they won't make the effort to let you help them in recovery, then you just have to cut ties. If you've never been there, you cannot fully understand. Anyways, I seriously begrudge those who exposed my one-time close friends to the drugs initially. No one is special, no one won't get hooked, and you knew that when you stuck the needle in her arm. You knew the pain. You knew the withdrawals, and you knew the danger you were putting her in. You exposed someone you supposedly cared about. Her friends and family know that you knew all of that when you stuck the needle in her arm. They hate you, dude, and do not want you there. Do not go. I am genuinely glad that you got clean. I know it isn't easy. The fact that you are clean is not only going to make the situation worse for her friends and family. You have your life. She doesn't. Do not pour salt in their fresh wounds. Going would be the most selfish thing you can do right now. Find another way to cope and get closure. I wish you well in your recovery. Getting clean from heroin is no small feat. You should be proud in that regard, but you need to pay your respects in another way privately. And OP says, thanks for taking the time to respond. It means a lot. Updates. Am I the a-hole for wanting to go to the funeral of a girl that I helped get addicted to drugs? I want to sincerely thank everyone who commented. Everyone's comments were appreciated, including those who were less than pleasant. Since I received such great advice on my original post, I felt like I had an obligation to update. And I'm trying to follow through on all aspects of my life, even internet ones. The funeral service was held this past Thursday. Before then, I brought all the advice I received online and brought it to the real world and talked to both my therapist and sponsor about how I was feeling and what I should do. My sponsor was straight with me and told me that I would be putting myself in danger by going, and that I should do something else that day to grieve. When Thursday rolled around, I was a mess. I seriously considered both just going to the funeral or using again, but instead I grabbed my dog and we went on a road trip. We went to the beach and just hung out, the two of us. I'm doing okay this week, but obviously I'm still not doing great. I haven't reached out to any of Marcy's family, and I don't plan to. I understand now how devastating that would be. That's it. Take care, everyone. Posted by user, I Teach Calculus USB-C. Titled, Am I the a-hole for forcing myself to bond with my boyfriend and fiance's daughter? So I've been dating a guy since 2012 or so, and we recently got engaged this year, 2019, on Valentine's Day. My fiance has 2 kids, 20 and 18 from a previous relationship. One will be a junior in college, and the other just graduated high school. Their mum isn't involved in their lives at all, and does not even live in the same country. However, I didn't really meet them until late 2014, early 2015, when my then boyfriend and I knew that we were serious. I've always got along well with the 18-year-old because he's relaxed and easygoing, but I've had more problems with a 20-year-old girl. When we first met, she'd always try to avoid talking to me or speak awfully of me behind my back. She even stopped going over to my fiance's house and instead chose to alternate living between her aunt's and uncle's homes because of me. This was when she was under 18 and legally under her dad's care. At some points, it was so bad that my fiancé debated whether he should keep dating me or not, and I really didn't want to break up with him. When she was about 17 to 19 or so, we got closer. Her dad dragged her to therapy after some behavioral problems and depressive symptoms, and we learned from her therapist that she had a lot of trauma from not having a consistently emotionally available mum figure in her life. Because I teach high school, I know how to get along decently with teenagers. I am one of the most popular teachers at my high school, and what it's like to be a 17 to 19-year-old girl from personal experience. I used those experiences to kind of try and force myself and bond with her to be the mum figure she lacked. I started going to her soccer games, dance shows, and school rallies when she was 16 and a junior in high school. I just generally tried to show that I cared for her by giving her hugs, listening to her friend and boy drama problems, and buying her things she liked. I think she likes me more now than before. I'm the first person she hugs when she comes back home from college and all that, although she's still closer with her aunts. She grew up under their care because my boyfriend was young when he had her and was in medical school full time. She planned out a nice Mother's Day celebration for me this year too. Explained that she wasn't comfortable doing it before we were engaged. She only came over 3 to 4 days a week when she was in high school, so it was doable. However, now that my fiancé and I are engaged and getting married in either 2020 or 2021, I wonder if I would actually be able to handle having her long-term in my life. I feel like such an a-hole for kind of faking my bond with my fiancé's daughter, especially when it comes so naturally with my fiancé's son, and in light of our impending marriage. I do appreciate that she is pretty, well-liked, resourceful, and smart. She attends a college that's Ivy level, but I'm not sure if I love her or ever will. Am I the a-hole for making an ingenuine bond with my fiancé's daughter in her teenage and early adult years, especially when she might think that I really like her? Genuinely, where the hell did that come from? I really wasn't expecting you to turn the tables like this. Why do you not like her so much? Why is it an ingenuine bond? Why can't you just like her and be a normal person? If you're marrying this man, why are you not able to handle having her long-term in your life? Isn't that an oxymoron to marrying someone who has kids? Yeah, I'm just gonna commit to you, but, not the kids. I'm gonna fake a relationship with them and then, I couldn't be bothered after that, I don't really like him. Just terrible decision-making all around. You would be the a-hole if you continue the ruse and don't tell her, and you are the a-hole for what you have done. You're the a-hole. You wrote a lot here, so I'll help you out with some free editing. Soon after meeting my partner's children, I ran into conflict with this troubled younger daughter to the extent that my partner seriously considered leaving me because of it. Not wanting to lose my relationship, I decided that I would pretend to care about this child. I used my educational background and things this child revealed in therapy to round out my deception. I successfully convinced a girl with a troubled relationship with her mother to think of me as a loving maternal figure, saving my relationship with her father from ending. However, I now feel the deception is no longer of any value to me. I have successfully secured my relationship, and I no longer want to expend the effort of pretending to care about this girl. I am worried that emotionally abandoning my soon-to-be stepdaughter, much like she feels she was abandoned by her actual mother, may end up being inconvenient or awkward for me though, and I have realized that marrying her father may mean I will have to interact with her long-term. Am I the a-hole for manipulating a child into loving me, and then choosing to discard her now that she's not useful to me? I'm not sure a-hole is the appropriate word for whatever the hell is wrong with you. Yes, thank you for laying out everything. What's fudging wrong with this woman? I am 100% certain her fiancé would dump her cold ass if he ever knew or read about her comments in this thread. She's essentially living in a relationship based on a lie. Yeah, that's what I said, but in a much better way. Pretending to bond with a motherless child as their mother figure, then wanting to drop them as soon as they got engaged to said motherless child's daddy, is such an evil thing to do that I want to vomit. You're the a-hole. At this point, this girl trusts you and bonded with you. You can't just drop her now. It'll hurt her even more than if you had just left her alone from the start. Please don't hurt her. You're the a-hole. Such a creepy, insincere, and kinda psychopathic thing to pretend to bond with a young person just to get their parent then to try to drop that bond because you got what you wanted. Makes my skin crawl. Especially a young motherless person. You want to pretend to be a mother figure, then dissolve that once you got that commitment from her father? Vile and evil. Updates. Am I the a-hole for forcing myself to bond with my boyfriend/fiance's daughter? I read over the replies to the post and thought really hard about it, although I admit I was often argumentative and didn't really want to listen for the most part. Meanwhile, my fiance's daughter came home shortly after I wrote the post. I asked her what she thought of her dad and I getting married, and she said that she couldn't wait to spend more time with me and all. I opened up and became super honest about my anxieties going into the marriage, how I didn't know how my role would change in her and our family, and how I was scared that I wasn't ready to be a mum to her and her brother. She reassured me that my role wouldn't change much, and that I was already the closest thing to a mum she ever had. I kinda started crying when she said that, and then she started crying too. Since her birthday is coming up soon, I always get her a card and write her something meaningful. I've also started to reflect upon all the memories we've shared, all the heavy personal stuff she's talked about with me, her soccer games and her team's wins and losses, her dance shows, her late-night phone calls from college, both happy and sad, etc. Now that I'm more clear on what she wants and expects from me after her dad and I get married, I think I've come to realize that yes, at first, I did have to sort of force myself to bond with her, especially when our relationship was on the rocks. But I've really come to love and appreciate my boyfriend's daughter, even through all the arguments and her initial teenage behaviors. Without her, I wouldn't get nearly as many hugs or as much love. And more importantly, I'd have missed out on getting really close with someone as intelligent, talented, and passionate as she is. When she was away for the past month or so at school and traveling for the summer, I actually really missed her, and I know that my life wouldn't be the same without her. I missed her hugs, love, and her snarky commentary on our favorite shows. I love all the hugs and appreciation I've gotten from her, but she's enriched my life in so many ways. So no, Reddit, my boyfriend and I are not getting divorced or breaking off the engagement anytime soon, but thank you for making me really reflect on my thoughts and potential behaviors towards her. I now see how suddenly withholding love could be really harmful towards someone who's gotten close to me, and someone I've grown really close to also. I think my fiance's daughter and I will just continue as we are, and hopefully grow even closer throughout the years. Typically, when someone who was the a-hole realizes they were wrong and tries to rectify that, it feels good to read about. This didn't feel that way though. The way you wrote your post gives indication that there's still something seriously wrong, and honestly makes me feel sad more than anything. I think it really comes down to what seems to be serious lack of empathy on your end. You seem to only care about this kid as far as you personally benefit from her. Your post goes into detail on how you realize you love her, primarily because of what you personally would be missing out on for not having her in your life. While that's nice, I guess, it feels very conditional and not genuine. It almost feels like you're doing the right thing, but still completely missing the point. Yeah, I agree. Even though OP is saying they do love the kid now, it just doesn't feel sincere. It has only been 28 days and seems like the fiancé's daughter was away at school for the most part. Even though OP said she missed the daughter, how will she feel when the fiancé's daughter is actually around? Seems premature to post an update that does a complete 180 flip when it's only been a month. I feel like since OP is in her 50s and has already invested so much into this dude, OP might be trying to cover her ass by writing this update, just in case somebody finds the previous post. Could also be a troll, but sadly I know there are people like her that exist. What the actual F is wrong with you? Everything in your post has been selfish, manipulative, and creepy as hell. This has to be a really crappy bait post. I feel like this post is trying to manipulate us into believing that she's changed and really loves her. It doesn't read as sincere at all. This kinda seems like it's still about what you get from her rather than what she deserves as a human being who trusts you as a maternal figure. I mean, you went on a big thing about how you don't love her, but now that she's said she doesn't expect much from you, you love her? And what you love is the attention and appreciation. Mum once married someone like you. Haven't seen him in over a decade. Wish I'd never met him at all. Posted by user Suweje. Titled, Am I the a-hole for cancelling dinner plans to celebrate with my daughter because my stepson was upset? My daughter, 13, and stepson, 11, have not gotten along since my daughter moved in. She had previously lived with her mother, but I got default custody after her mother turned one of her 24-hour disappearing acts into a never-coming-back one. My daughter and her stepson go to the same middle school and were both running for student council VP. There was tension in the house, and my wife told my stepson that if he won, we would go out to celebrate. My daughter asked if this applied to her as well, since he wasn't her only competitor, and my wife said, of course. The campaign got pretty stressful for the both of them. Then the votes came in, and my daughter wins by 4 votes. However, because somehow the one person who ran for treasurer this year dropped out because of grades, my stepson was offered that position. He saw it as a really pitiful consolation prize, and was angry that he had to take orders from my daughter. I felt very bad for my stepson, and he and his mother, who is also very type A, was very upset, even though of course my wife congratulated my daughter. My stepson refused to be comforted by the fact that older kids get more easily elected because they know more people, and his mother even offered to take her to the law office and give him some responsibilities, saying that was better experience than student council would ever be. My stepson then said, please tell me you're not going to rub it in my face by taking us to dinner now. My wife also looks really reluctant to go to dinner. I finally tell my daughter that we weren't going to be going to dinner because her stepbrother was very upset by the turn of events, and we need to take his feelings into consideration, and that I was impolite to gloat. That all happened Friday. My daughter ended up crying, and even now, Sunday night, she's still mad at all of us. Am I the a-hole? Of course, another fine situation where, if it was the stepbrother in this sister's shoes, he would have no problem taking her out to dinner and gloating about it. But just because he throws a hissy fit, we have to consider his feelings over the one that deserves a dinner. This is obvious and disgusting and clear favoritism for the stepbrother, and I won't stand by it, OP. I don't understand why you're doing this for him. You promised a dinner and now you're backing out. He doesn't have to go to the dinner if he doesn't want to, but she is owed a dinner for winning because you promised. You're the a-hole. Yes, you're the a-hole. You broke a promise first of all, which, while minor to us adults, is a huge deal to kids. And also, you showed your daughter that, even if incorrectly, you prefer your stepson to her. Ideally, you should have gone to dinner together like promised, and then had a separate outing with the stepson to console him after his loss. Your daughter is likely already reeling from her mother piecing out permanently, and her reaction is probably a combination of you going back on your promise and residual hurt of being abandoned by a loved one. Wouldn't surprise me at least. She's your daughter. Make it up to her. Maybe even one-to-one with you and her doing something she loves to do. And your wife is an a-hole too. Her behaviors towards your daughter are questionable just from the post. She's an adult. Why was she sulking over keeping a promise to a kid, which was very simple? Going to dinner together to celebrate? That shows your daughter that her stepmom doesn't care for her successes, and that's a bad precedent to set. This was a real teaching moment to the stepson about being gracious in defeat. Instead, he taught his daughter that her achievements don't mean crap. I mean, this whole dynamic doesn't really sound like a cohesive family unit. It feels like a single mother with her son and a single father with his daughter living together. If the stepson was really that upset about it, but I'll reiterate, teaching moment for losing gracefully, why couldn't OP just go one-on-one with his daughter? Why does the whole thing have to be cancelled? So yeah, you're the a-hole OP. Exactly this. Why would you waste this opportunity to teach your kids? You knew one of them would lose and one would be disappointed. This cannot be a surprise. Also, son will get 2 years of extra chances after his sister moves to high school. He should be pleased that she gets a go before graduating. He gets extra practice at other positions to make him a better committee member in the long run. Go to dinner and celebrate/commiserate. Daughter rubbing son's face in her win would be crappy, but it doesn't sound like that'll be a problem. The part about him being angry about having to take orders from his stepsister is just the icing on the cake. Maybe point out to him that it isn't taking orders, but a fun opportunity for the two of them to work together. This, coupled with impolite to gloat, and putting his feelings ahead of hers, just reeks of good old-fashioned sexism. The daughter is learning her place, and that's a terrible lesson. Posted by user ThrowawaySNBully. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not apologizing to a high-functioning autistic bully after calling him out? I, 15 male, go to school with a guy I'll call Jake. Jake has high-functioning autism and is also a bully. He won't ever try on someone bigger than him, like me, but he will go after smaller guys and seems to really like to go after the girls. He will always say he didn't understand what he said was inappropriate, and he is never held accountable by the teachers. So on Monday, he was really harping on a girl I'll call Laurie. I've known Laurie since I was 6, and I can say she's quiet, and keeps to herself because she's so self-conscious. Because when she was little, she was involved in a fire and got badly burned. He wouldn't stop telling her how ugly she was and how she'd never get a boyfriend, because no one wanted to be around something like that. She said he was being cruel, but he still wouldn't stop. Laurie started crying, and our teacher tried to say he probably just didn't understand what he did, and I blew up. I said it was ridiculous that everyone kept giving him a pass to bully people because they're afraid of upsetting the autistic kid. Well, I wasn't, and there was no way he didn't know it was inappropriate to call her ugly and continue insulting her even after she told him he was being cruel. He's a bully. Him having autism doesn't make him any less of one, and it was ridiculous to expect others to just get bullied to spare his feelings. The teacher gave us both detention, and Jake is trying to play the victim. But I made it clear he was just a bully, and I have no tolerance for bullies. The rest of the week, no one would talk to him or associate with him, and now he's blaming me for ruining his life. His mum called my mum yesterday and asked me to apologize. I won't, and now she's upset and says that I'm bullying her kid. My mum says to do what I feel is best, But my grandma thinks that it was an a-hole move to call him out in front of everyone, and I should be the bigger person and apologize. Am I the a-hole for not apologizing? Oh my god, you're terrible for calling out a bully who's making other people feel like shit. Oh man, we really have to pander to this guy. Man, the autism is just an excuse for him to say whatever he wants. Because I'm sure that him saying very specific things, he has no clue what he's saying, but he's specifically targeting specific details and looks of people and the causes of it. But hey, let's just keep patting him on the back because he doesn't know what he's talking about, and you're the terrible person for calling him out on it. I have no time for these trash excuses that these people have. They're all the a-holes in this situation for enabling him. I get with the 2020 culture, teachers are scared to crack down on kids' attitudes because, it's always the teacher's fault. It's never the kids these days. Spare the kids and their feelings. Kinda sick to death of those attitudes and not holding kids accountable, because I saw it through school, and it's stupid. OP, not the a-hole for not apologizing. Not the a-hole. You are completely right. While some autistic people do have a hard time with having a filter, blatantly doing it over and over again is clearly not his autism. It's just, as you said, bullying. Being a bully isn't exclusive to neurotypical kids. Anyone can do it. Letting him pass like this is also not doing any good for Jake himself. No less anyone else, especially when it comes time for him to go out into the real world. Anyhow, good on you for defending Laurie and not letting him get away with his crappy behavior, unlike everyone else. I bet she's beautiful, and she doesn't deserve any of that. Don't apologize to Jake's mum either, because he got what he deserved. Bam! You're a good guy. Not the a-hole, and I agree with you on everything you said. I'm an adult with Asperger's, and I've always had a knack for saying inappropriate stuff at the wrong time, but being cruel is a choice. Not being an a-hole is not fudging rocket science, and autistic people who use their condition as an excuse to be cruel are crap stains. Not the a-hole, seconded by another adult diagnosed with high-functioning autism. I'm terrible with social cues or facial expressions. Part of my diagnosis is mild prosopagnosia or face blindness. But you know what is blatantly obvious, even to me? Crying. If I said something that made someone cry, it would be very clear to me that I screwed up. Social cues are hard for us because of the lack of clear rules. However, when it comes to commenting on others' appearances, I was taught one as a young girl, the 10-second rule. If the person cannot fix it in under 10 seconds, do not comment on it. A bit of ketchup by their mouth? Button undone? Yep, you can say something, but politely and only to them. A change in weight? A scarf? Hair loss? Nope, leave that alone. Autism is not a free pass to be inconsiderate. It is hard, but if people are trying to work with our differences, we should be trying to meet them halfway. Not being an ass because you think you can get away with it. Posted by user Cascade Quedge. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter and ex-son-in-law that I don't want custody of their daughter either? My daughter and my ex-son-in-law had a 4-year-long divorce for a marriage that lasted barely a year. In that time, their daughter, 14, has acted out. My daughter found her lying on the couch blackout drunk for the first time when she was 11. My ex-son-in-law recently had a week with her in which she refused food for 4 days in a row. I haven't had a much better time with my granddaughter either. Once I drove her to a birthday party and she ended up pulling a 24-hour disappearing act until finally a friend admitted she was with them. And the worst part is that many of the daughter's problems weren't reported by either side because both my daughter and ex-son-in-law feared that the other parent would lose all custody and they would have to deal with her full time. Now my daughter and son-in-law are at their breaking points. They both are arguing that they don't want custody and that the daughter is the other's responsibility. They have both gone as far as to threaten to get themselves arrested so that they would lose custody. My daughter even said that she was contemplating purposefully driving drunk and getting pulled over with her daughter in the front seat so she would lose custody. They finally turned to me and begged that I take her in. My ex-son-in-law stood outside my house yesterday in the pouring rain for a full hour, begging me to take my granddaughter in until he finally went home. I finally emailed the both of them and said that I was 1 year away from turning 60 and had already planned my life in a way that doesn't involve a child. I ended it by saying that if they both wanted their child to be living anywhere besides their homes, then it would be in a foster care facility. Am I the a-hole? My daughter and her ex were teen parents, but honestly this is such a mess, and their daughter is such a mess, that I don't feel like it's fair to make me deal with the destruction they caused. From the way it's worded, you have the mental, financial, and emotional stability to be able to get this 14-year-old girl the help she needs. You obviously aren't obliged to do it, but if you have the ability to save someone's life like that, and you're only 60 years old, I feel like you'd be an a-hole for doing that. It really doesn't seem like you care about any of those three people, and obviously it's not your job to save this granddaughter. They obviously suck. They are worse than dirt for wanting to purposefully drive drunk and getting pulled over with the daughter in the front seat just to lose custody. What reality are we living in here? I would urge you to change your heart and take this 14-year-old in and get her away from the foster care system, because that's where dreams and hopes go to die a lot of the time, from what I've read here. My judgment, everyone sucks here. This is a dumpster fire on a dumpster fire on a dumpster fire. Everyone sucks here. You are correct that it is not your job to raise your granddaughter. However, did you read what you wrote? You have her parents arguing over who gets stuck with the girl, and your biggest concern is that you are not the one that gets her. Do none of you give a damn about this kid? Foster care sounds like an improvement over the a-holes she has as a blood family. I don't think OP sucks just because she has finished raising her own child, or children, and doesn't want to take on her granddaughter. She didn't force her daughter and son-in-law to have children. How is a 60-year-old woman going to be better equipped to handle a troubled teenager than her own parents? At least with split custody, her actual parents would get some breaks, but instead, they want grandma to take this on 100% of the time? At least if she was going to go into foster care, she would be assigned a social worker who would probably care more about getting her help than her own parents do. It sucks that this girl has the parents that she does, but grandparents aren't obligated to take over just because the parents decide they don't want to do it anymore. Everyone sucks here, except Kiddo. As unpopular an opinion this may be, her behavior is a direct result of all the built-up trauma and BS that this kid has had no say in being in the middle of. This is a kid who can tell no one wants her, and honestly, given her behavior, I have a feeling she's treated a lot worse behind closed doors than you're aware of. While it is entirely not your responsibility to parent this kid, I do think you need to knock some sense into her parents, since it was your own bad parenting that allowed your teenage daughter to get pregnant with her to begin with. This kid doesn't deserve to get tossed to the side because she's going through it. She needs therapy, not to be abandoned. This so much. Drunk at 11? Sadly, it's most likely desperately trying to find something that she could do that will show they have even the tiniest bit of care, love, or concern for her. And now she's realized they don't give a crap, so she'll do whatever she wants to. She needs help badly. Foster care sadly will just affirm to her she's unwanted and unloved, though it's looking like the best option sadly. She needs therapy badly. She needs care. Posted by user ComplexPudding6145, titled, Am I the a-hole for saying that my stepsister's dad doesn't love her? So my mum passed away when I was very young. It was due to a car crash. I'm mostly over her death, but sometimes it gets to me. My father remarried 10 years ago, 5 years after my mum passed away. And I feel like recently, my stepsis is really getting on my nerves. She is the same age as me, and sometimes she can really be a tramp. She constantly steals my stuff because our parents force us to not lock our rooms. Yesterday, she was using my headphones when I wanted to use them to game, so I just plopped it off her head. She came back screaming, and today I found my headphone in pieces. I just told my parents, and she had to give me $200 from her account, and she's not allowed in my room. Then she started to bully me about my mum's death. I honestly had enough of it, and I just said, at least my mum loved me, your dad forfeited his parental rights, and some other stuff. That made her scream and cry into her room. Now I have to apologize to her for some reason. She literally started it. I'm not giving an apology unless she acknowledges what she did wrong. So, am I the a-hole? Man, I've really picked some good stories today, hey? My god. It never ceases to amaze me the lengths that people will go to hurt each other, and this was all over some headphones. But I guess people have done worse for much less, so I'm not surprised. I don't think it was right of you to call her out on her parents abandoning her and her father giving up his parental rights. And I also don't think that it was right for her to have a go at you for that. I don't think it was right for her to break the headphones. I feel like we could have all just not had this happen in the first place if we communicated. But that's harder as kids because communication isn't the easiest thing. There really isn't any solution to this one besides moving on and forgiving each other and not doing it again. But as it stands, everyone sucks here in this situation. You guys really need to grow up. This is a crap situation. Unfortunately, the verdict is everyone sucks here because you can't use people's traumas to get revenge. But she is a problem. In this situation, you made a mistake too. Edits, just to say the sister is in the wrong too for using the mum's death, just for clarity. I'd say the biggest a-holes here are the parents, because where the hell are they in all of this? Agreed. It's obvious that OP and his stepsister are traumatized children acting out, and the parents are not getting them the help they desperately need. This is a very clear everyone sucks here. She damaged your property, so you have a right to be annoyed. Responding by talking about her absent father is a horrible thing to do, and you know it. You say you want her to acknowledge what she has done. You really should acknowledge what you have done. I'm going against the grain and going with not the a-hole. I lost my dad when I was 11. If anyone mocked my situation, I'd take the lowest blow going. Your stepsister is mocking your loss and someone that died in such a tragic way. The only way she's going to learn how that feels is by getting a taste of her own medicine. Yeah, I'm seeing so many people saying, oh, don't stoop to their levels, but I had a dead dog at a very young age that I was never able to say goodbye to, and if someone mentioned him, I would throw hands. I would lose, but I will try, and that is the same thing in this. One of the most clear everyone sucks here I've ever seen. You have a right to be annoyed with how she acted. She destroyed your property and then started bullying you about your mother's death because she was mad that she had to pay you for what she purposefully broke. If you left it at that, then the verdict would be not the a-hole. However, you decided to be just as cruel and decided to stoop down to her level. You were both in the wrong here, even if she was the one who started it. Posted by user BrudgeCrockett96, titled, Am I the a-hole for wearing a skirt that makes my boyfriend feel uncomfortable? So I, 22 female, have got this nice, thick, pipey, knee-long skirt I like to wear when I can outside of work. The only downside of the skirt is that when I completely bend over, you can see a bit of underwear. We were going for a walk and I wore the skirt. At the point of leaving, boyfriend 24 male says, I don't want you to wear that skirt. It makes me uncomfortable. Change, please. I asked him why I can't wear it, and how does it make you uncomfortable? He got mad that I asked and told me it just does. Then he said we're not going unless you change. I felt bad, but I changed into jeans. He had a comment about the jeans as well. Every time he sees Chloe from the show Lucifer in her jeans, he cringes because it makes him feel uncomfortable because it's so tight. This was my one day off this week, so I really wanted to do things together, as he always says we don't get much time because of work. I had a fight about it with him that it came across as controlling for me. He told me I didn't validate his feelings, and that I could have been a good partner and thunk, this might make him feel uncomfortable. I'll just change for him, as a gesture, and that I was selfish for not considering his feelings. Reddit, am I the a-hole for wanting to wear my skirt even though it makes my boyfriend uncomfortable? I'm gonna say it's your body, your choice on this one, and he's your boyfriend. He's supposed to be your biggest supporter, and if he's trying to control the things you wear because, it might upset him, then I think perhaps he needs to think of his role as boyfriend in the relationship. I do think that there are exceptions to this, and that people do and can wear things that are wildly inappropriate for the public's eyes. Perhaps then the thought, this might make him feel uncomfortable, I'll just change for him, would be warranted. But this is not one of those situations. It's not like OP is walking around the streets with a giant dildo strapped to her forehead with a whole bunch of, imagery going on that the public doesn't want to see. That just isn't happening, so I feel it's out of place for the boyfriend to be saying this, as it's coming from his insecurities, and obviously OP isn't cool with that. So, OP is not the a-hole for wanting to wear their skirt, even though it makes the boyfriend uncomfortable. Edit, this was last weekend, and a few other things happened that day too. I broke up with him. He came to me in the night crying. He never cries. And he told me he was sorry, and he acted out of insecurity, and appreciates I changed for him. He suggested couples counseling. He made an appointment for Friday. Apart from the relationship stuff, it was more me asking myself if I didn't validate his feelings. I was a bit like, you can talk about how you feel and express, but not act on it. I also had a bit of a, it's not my problem attitude. That's why I'm asking. Not the a-hole. Wear what you want and don't feel guilty for it. Don't let him dictate your wardrobe. That's classic controlling behavior. You're right. She should just drop the skirt and go out in her underwear. That'll show him. Not the a-hole. You changed into jeans and he still had an issue. Your skirt wasn't even a mini skirt. What are the odds that you'll bend over that much, and it's the end of the world if someone sees half an inch of your underwear for a third of a second? Even if it had been a miniskirt, you would be 100% right, and he would have no right to tell you to change. But I'd believe in that case it might be coming from a place of immature jealousy and sexism. But in this case, I think he's mad in general that you don't do what he says without question. He just wants to control you, and thinks getting you to do little things will make you more compliant. We have a small, long window next to the front door. It has those kind of curtains to blur it a bit. It's like 10 centimeters wide. I can't walk or sit in my underwear on the couch 5 meters away because someone might see it when they walk past. He just tells me to put on some pants or tosses me a blanket. Yeah, that's absurd. Does he enjoy telling you what to do in general? He tells me he is a person of reason, so he firmly believes what he says and does is the right thing. I wanted Coke one night, but I couldn't have it and didn't give a reason at the time. Later on, he said that we've had enough Coke for a while, so I'm getting you water. I am now confident that his commands on your clothing are not really anxiety that people will see your underwear, or related to modesty at all. I think it's all a strategy to feel like he owns you and is in charge of you. Updates. Am I the a-hole for wearing a skirt that makes my boyfriend uncomfortable? So, it's been 2+ months, and I figured some of you might want to see an update on the whole situation. First of all, a big thank you to all those people that gave me advice and were the lovely judging people of Reddit. Without a doubt, that Am I the a-hole made a difference for me. So thank you. Long story short, we broke up, I moved out, and am so happy now. I know it's normal to read, and it will always go this way, but ignorant me always read these posts thinking, nah, that ain't gonna be me. Here we are single and all, and never felt better. Now the longer version. After the skirt thing, he made a few other comments, and I had it. I broke up with him at the end of May with no idea what to do next, just emigrated to this country while living together. We went to therapy where he got told in his face that he was an abusive and controlling asshole, and if he truly didn't see any of that, he can be diagnosed since they thought it might be autism or high-functioning Asperger's. It was bad. I cried a lot during therapy and tried to open up to her about the situations, and not knowing to go on because he didn't mean it right. When she was out of the room, he called me a crybaby, again as a joke. Later that night, he also told me he knew about all of my Reddit posts and that he could see, etc., everything. So most likely also this one. Yay! After the second session, they told me, 2 individual therapists, that he will not change, and I do not want to sign up for a life like this with kids, etc. They see it so much, and if I had a way of preventing this future, I should for my emotional well-being. I moved out 1.5 months ago on my own, made some new friends and started looking for new jobs. He tried to contact me several times, and we did talk sometimes. It would always go that he told me he had changed and can see it now, but my love was long gone. I told him I didn't love him anymore, but he kept pushing until I blocked him. He told me he was having panic attacks, was suicidal and whatnot. He needed someone to talk to, but that someone wasn't me. Just having normal people around me while I'm wearing my skirt and doing my things without negativity is just a big breath of fresh air. It's so relieving I can't tell you how much I feel like myself again, and most of all, not crazy. I'm doing hobbies, sports, therapy and whatnot, but I'm happy. One of the few moments this month I did feel lonely, I sometimes text him back, but ended that completely too, and just reread all of my situation with him, 32, within a year and a bit. Apparently, he also cheated on me with his ex, telling her that he wanted to marry her instead of me. Her ass was way better than mine. I had to work out more to earn a compliment according to him. And so that was that. No more Mr. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. Thanks for anyone reading this. If you are in a situation with a partner and you doubt yourself or question yourself all the time by things he says or does, please listen to that gut feeling because you aren't wrong or a bad person for thinking it, and it tells you more than enough. In the end, I was not the a-hole. Thanks everyone for your inputs and opinions. Good for you, but I'd like to add on as a person with Asperger's. The things your ex were doing are definitely familiar to me, in that they sound a lot like the behaviors I've grown up with, but undiagnosed and allowed to run wild, unchecked. I am so thankful I was able to be diagnosed and given help before they got too bad, lest I end up like your ex. Still working at it, but I'm getting there. Ex, if you are reading this, from one Aspie to another, get some help, or watch your world burn around you. The things you've done already warrant the latter, by the way. Frankly, you don't deserve to be a part of our community. Good luck in all you do, OP. You've got one Aspie rooting for ya, and you're awesome. You too. You did the right thing. Posted by user Novel Cost, titled, Am I the a-hole for using if when it comes to my son becoming a father? My son, 17, came to us and said that he had gotten his girlfriend pregnant. Him even having a girlfriend was news to us, so we asked a few questions. When I found out who it was, I admit it made the situation worse. Our town isn't Mayberry, but it's not a sprawling metropolitan. The girl is the same age as him and is on her 3rd pregnancy, which is well known at their high school, all by different fathers. First pregnancy, she had an abortion. Second, she miscarried. Now she's on her 3rd with my son. We agreed to meet with her parents. I said that while I'm not against the kids dating, we won't be giving any money until we do a DNA test and know the child is my son's. I even agreed to pay for one of those tests that you can do while she's still pregnant, so if he was, we could start figuring stuff out before the baby comes. Her parents agreed to it, but seemed turned off as to why I kept saying things as if son is the father. I didn't come out and say it, but I thought it was pretty naive of them given their daughter's situation. They know of her previous pregnancies, as they mentioned them in the meeting. My husband and I sort of got into a disagreement about it afterwards. Obviously, our son isn't innocent either. He got himself in a situation where he potentially got a girl pregnant at 17. At the same time, I want to protect him from a potential situation. I don't think this girl or her parents are after money. They are not in need of it. I just think they don't want their daughter to go through this alone, and I don't blame them. And if this baby is our grandchild, they will not lack for love. But I'm not getting attached. Husband asked if I would feel different if she were, say, our older son's first girlfriend, who was a much different girl, not a very racy past. I admitted I wouldn't. He said that's what made me look bad here. Am I the a-hole for how I feel here? I guess some people could see you as slut-shaming in a sense, or that you look down on her for this being her third baby, and I can also see people siding with you for those views because it's understandable you're just out here trying to do the best for your son. My opinion on this one is that you're not the a-hole for how you feel here because I do feel like you are trying to protect the son, and she does have a history with pregnancies. It's not entirely impossible that there is another father to this son. The best course of action is to do what you guys are pushing for. Get a paternity test done, keep it as an if situation, and then the truth will come out after the fact. Can't blame you for that one, you're not the a-hole. You're the a-hole. Your son needs to accept responsibility and take care of the child. He was with the mother, so he is the father. There is a reason France and other European countries have outlawed paternity tests in cases like this. This child needs support from both of its parents, and trying to weasel your way out of this is gross. What kind of wacky-doodle bullcrap reasoning is this? It doesn't sound like OP's son isn't accepting responsibility. OP just wants to make sure the child is actually her son's. And OP says, if he is the father, then of course he will be there. We will help him provide financial support. I never said we wouldn't at any point. I've been preparing him for that since we found out. If he's not, biologically, I wouldn't be helping them out financially. He can still choose to act as a father to the baby since they are together. No a-holes here, but saying if isn't really going to change much. It's not going to make your son less likely to be the dad, so I don't really know that it's worth emphasizing that unless you're just wanting to annoy them. Not the a-hole. Girls got a reputation. Reputations are important to uphold or they are going to bite you in the ass. No a-holes here. You are both trying to protect your kids. In your case, would you rather eat crow and be happy if it comes out that your son is the father, or have this situation happen? When I was in high school, I went to a school with a dude who got a girl pregnant. His parents were pretty religious, so they were super supportive of the pregnancy. But they implored him to get a paternity test. I know this because I was friends with the cousin who told me. They waited till the baby was here though, so this guy who has never had a girlfriend before, was super religious, and has only had sex with her, got time to get nice and attached to the idea of being a father. He was not the father. I kind of suspected it, because while the girl in question did not have quite the reputation of the girl you mentioned, she was kind of more cavalier with her sexuality than the young man in my story. Him not being the father kind of screwed him up for a bit, because the child had the same middle name as him. He took pictures with her pregnant belly, etc., so it might be a good thing that you are pressing X, so to speak, right now. Updates. Am I the a-hole for using if when it comes to my son becoming a father? So, a DNA test was performed. The baby that my son's girlfriend is carrying is definitely his. After much discussing, they have decided that they are going to raise it. I can't say that I'm 100% thrilled with their choice. I think they are young, and the other parents have admitted that their daughter has been in and out of treatment facilities for depression over the years, but it's their choice, and there is not much I can do about that. My son has gotten a full-time job and is 100% dedicated to raising this child, to give it everything that it desires. The girlfriend is on certain medications and is seeing the doctors weekly, and the baby is doing great. My husband and I have agreed to help out as much as we can. I don't have regrets for doubting my son's paternity, but I do get why the parents and my husband were taken aback, so I did apologize to them. Thank you all for the best wishes. Great job. You were not the a-hole to begin with. It was hugely appropriate to get the paternity test for your son. Like, what if the child wasn't his and he was saddled with the responsibility of raising it for a high school girlfriend that had cheated? Paternity tests should be mandatory for all births where a male is in the home. Glad you apologized to them. Hopefully you apologize to the 17-year-old girl as well. You mentioned that she was being treated quite a bit for depression. You should mention to your son at some point to keep an eye out on her for her PPD. Congrats on being a grandparent. OP, you needn't apologize. It's only sensible for an unexpected pregnancy. I personally think a DNA test should be performed before a father's name is listed on a birth certificate. That would uncomplicate a lot of scenarios that seem to pop up later on. Alright, that's where I think I'm going to end today's episode, guys. As always, I really do hope you learned something or just really enjoyed the posts that were put up today. Quick shout out to all my new and existing Patreon and channel members. You should be able to see your name on screen right now, and if you don't, then I don't think you're part of the club, and you really should join the club because it's a great club. And I want to thank every single one of you guys for supporting me in this journey. It really means so much to me, and I love you all so much for it. Thank you for helping me out. As you can tell, I'm now happy and healthy back in Australia. Thank God it's not cold like Ireland. I don't like wearing jumpers everywhere. I prefer the heat. Thank you very much. I know that's an unpopular opinion. Anyway, guys, I really do hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'll see you in the next one. Have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you later. Bye.